Hey, you crazy cats! 42's live streams and videos are simply not available on vinyl. You will have to go to the YouTubes for that. So if you want content about British traditions and culture, cutting edge social commentary from an unapologetically patriotic perspective, along with a side order of madness you simply will not find anywhere else, then this is the place for you. And to all those early adapters in the chat, don't forget to hit the notification bell. That's how you get the good stuff and make sure you never miss a tasty treat. So with that being said and done, squeeze yourself in. Let's get into it. You know you want to. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Please delete as applicable because the internet is worldwide and time zones are indeed still a thing. And I managed to get me on the screen from the intro with no hiccups this week. We're getting better. We're all good. Can I get a wee audio check in the chat, please? Let me know how it sounds. I've actually moved where I normally stream in my living room, but I've moved the kitchen because I've done a little bit of DIY. I've got myself a kitchen table sorted out. It's not fully finished in that there's more cosmetic stuff to be done, but yeah, that could get interesting because we might actually do some different content if things go really well. I'm not promising anything, but let's say I've got wee ideas. Oh yes, I've got the ideas going. Anyway, now we've got that done, we'll say a couple of hellos. Budgie Burger is first in, as always. I lived in a town called Lanark. We had Laniers Day. Mr. Burger. Pat is in. What about you, chum? And Don Browning is in from Down Under. Paga is telling me that the audio is good. Another elephant is in. And that's what we have in the comments so far. The rest of you must be hiding. Now, what else do we have? Oh, we have other news. Oh boy, do we have news. We have all sorts of news. There's Arms in. What about you, chum? Glad to see you. Billy Vlogs. I'm pretty sure you know all about the Lammas Fair. I would say you've possibly even been there. Who can tell? Brad James is in. Who'd forgot about Lammas? Well, there we go. Firstly, I failed. I've got 3 live streams going there. Flicking the Twix. It's going to be very confusing. Yeah, it is. That is. It reminds me of what my dad does. He gets frustrated with television adverts. So he'd be watching a film, and every time the adverts come on, he'd flick back and then try to go back to it whenever he thinks the adverts is film, but he's went on to a different film, and he ends up watching one film until an advert comes along, and then a different film, and he's missed chunks out of it. It's all great being in his house making dinner. Actually, it's great because I do enjoy my dad's company and all, but it is one of the things that he's picked up lately that does get a bit confusing because they're generally always both cowboy films. So you go from one cowboy film to another. There's Courage the Secures in. What about you, Robin? Thank you very much for dropping by. I've got your email. I will do all my email replies tomorrow. I will get all. I will get all caught up. Thank you very much for dropping by. Right. What are we going to do? We're going to do the shout outs. Uh, First off, I really haven't a clue what the fuck goes on with Jack and Rags, but I'm sure there'll be something on tomorrow night. I feel like that. Off you go. Uh, no idea what it is, but there you go, sir. Because a lot of people watch this also watch that. So I'm going to continue to shout it out. The other ones are Curry's is Secure, who you all know from the end of the month stream last week. And she has, Robin has replied to me because I did what I always do and I sent out the invite, the thank you for coming on and the right to reply. And yeah, Robin is coming back for more of the madness. So you will see her all again in a couple of weeks' time, the end of the month. Robin's going to be one of the guests. I'm not sure who the other one is. I think it could, well, we'll see. I'm sending out an invite after this show, and we will see what comes back about who the other guest is going to be. But there you go. But in the meantime, click on that profile and subscribe, because if you like my stuff, you're probably going to like Robin's stuff as well. The other show that we like to give a shout out to is RPW Media. Now, again, you seen Rich on the end of the month show last week, and guess what? Big news, people. Some of you probably already know because you were in the chat whenever it was announced. But myself and Mr. Paca will be on with RPW Media Show next Friday night. It starts at 11 p.m. 2300 hours British summertime. We're on at the moment. So there's that to look out for. And whenever that link goes live, I will make a community post so as people can know about it and come across to it. So there's those two things. And the other shout out that we always like to do is the one, the only, the Dave Waffle House. Dave Waffle House is the home of the best duck race on the internet. Happens every Friday night. You can win all sorts of prizes. Oh, I remember watching the duck race last night, but I can't remember who it was won it. I think it was Brad James. I believe it was Brad James. Can you confirm if it was you, Brad, that won the duck race and what you actually won? I think it was a duck. Yep, I was right. Yes, he won a rubber duck. One of the ducks from the duck advent calendar. It's a very, totally fixed. Totally and utterly fixed. Oh, I love the rockabilly. Yep, one of the ducks from the duck advent calendar. It's a very duck themed show over at Dale Waffle House. Well, ducks, beaver, stock taken. Content's generally good, occasionally fair. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of going off Greenwich Mean Time. I would just stick with Greenwich Mean Time all year round. We can't do British summertime all year round because then you'll have lots of people getting hungover because they're trying to go to work or school in the fucking dark. Depending on what type of country you're in and how close you are to the poles of the equator, it becomes more or less of a problem. And where I live, it's very much a problem with dark mornings, particularly in the winter. So there's that. Yeah, so the Dave Waffle House and the duck race. Get yourself on there every week evening from 8:30. Really good friendly chat, great wee community, and get yourself involved. So there's all of that. We've done 10 minutes already. And we're going to begin. We're going to talk about Lammas Day and the traditions of it. One of the things that we are going to get into is not only is the tradition, uh, the events all reducing, but also the information on the tradition and the events is reducing because I swear to God, I have the last time I looked into Lammas Day for the stream was 2 years ago, and it was a hell of a lot easier to find links than actually it was a year ago because I did the Active Union stream and I did some Lammas Day stuff along with that, and it was a lot easier to find the information. And some of the links that I had saved from then uh, go to they're just not there anymore. So there's that. So not only are we losing the traditions, we're losing even the history of the traditions. Uh, I will say that on Dave Waffle House last night, that must mean sheep and finish. Yep, Dave Waffle House was saying about the term Anglo-Saxon and Cambridge University and trying to say it's too, I don't know, right wing or something. And they're changing that. It's not just why that has come up and people are complaining about it. It's not. It's not just that that's being lost and being changed. We have a lot of 1 second. We have a hell of a lot of revisionist history being done by the people from the sociology department because they are doing courses that are half history and half sociology with an intent to change how history is portrayed. In other words, rewriting history. And this is a very real thing. And I was at this point I'm thinking, I wish I had sent some of that. I wish I had sent some of that stuff to the Wayback Machine because it's now gone, lost forever. But there you go. Now, so there's that. But what we're going to start with is a little tune. We're going to have a song that is about Lammas Day. And yeah, hold on, we're going to see about we had problems with the links. 1 second. Sorry. I've lost all my links. Where to go? Oh yes, here we go. We've got it. And now we're going to get the advertisements. So when that's done, I will start presenting. Share screen, share screen. You will recognize this from the Wicker Man. So it was one memento, and we will get this bit of music on. Here we go. Listen to the words in this, people.
It was upon a Lammas night when corn rigs are bonny. Beneath the moon's unclouded light I held a while to Annie, The time went by with careless heed, till tween the late and early. With small persuasion she agreed to see me through the barley. Corn rigs and barley rigs and corn rigs are bonny. I'll not forget that happy night among the rigs with Annie. The sky was blue, the wind was still, the moon was shining clearly. I set her down with right goodwill among the rigs of barley. I kenned her heart was all my own, I loved her most sincerely. I kissed her o'er and o'er again among the rigs of barley. Corn rigs and barley rigs and corn rigs are bonny. I'll not forget that happy night among the rigs with Annie.
All right. So that was corn rigs and barley, corn rigs song, and it's basically about the evening that these two people spent after the celebrations and festivities had, well, the public ones had finished, and they did what is normally done, which is go out amongst the produce and the corn and copulate it. And you will find that there is a very common theme within all of our uh, festivals, that this seems to be a part of pretty much all of them. There'll be hand tan, whereby you can basically marry somebody for a year and a day. Uh, the actual day is quite important because it means that the same festival next year, a woman can't get pregnant again, which puts a little bit of a space for it. And a lot of these festivals, oh, the the Nicolas Cage one is absolute shit, total and utter shit. The original one, though, there's a mixture of two or three different festivals enacted into that one film, but it's all quite similar. And the other function of these fairs were to reduce inbreeding, because if you're living in small communities, maybe 50, 100 permanent people in a little village or hamlet, then you have a problem with inbreeding. However, if a couple of times a year you have a load of people from very far away, or well, outside your ecosystem, coming through and putting in new genes, that alleviates that problem. And there's also the spiritual aspect where women can say that they became pregnant by the gods uh, and the season. They all were, mate. They all were. Rather than some random person that you paired off with, and it sounds a bit nicer. And these children were all accepted into the community. So there you go. Although sometimes she would have moved off along with him, or he would have stayed, or whatever. So in all of this and everything we'll talk about tonight, you need to understand that a large part of this festival was part of a cover of Getting to the Bit where uh, the sex could occur later on. Uh, so there you go. But with that, I'm going to start off with yeah, what are we going to start with? We're going to start with this. This is from the Clerk of Oxford. It's a blog because in order to get the information, I had to go off the mainstream. Encyclopedia Britannica's got fuck all about it now. So there's that. But we will get the information. Let's get this up on the screen. And also have a quick check at that is much too small. I'm going to enlarge the writing, zoom in, and we're going to zoom in again. We'll check what it looks like on the screen. Fuck me, that's still small. That is still small. Right. Yep, we're happy with that. We've got a little picture here of a medieval Lammas time, and you can see the people gathering in the wheat or barley. You can see a crofter with his cattle. I'm not quite sure what that other person is, but here we go. Today is Lammas, an Anglo-Saxon harvest festival celebrated on the 1st of August. Its name comes from the Old English half for loaf and messe, mass, and it may have been a day when loaves of bread made from the first corn were blessed. So you've got this thing where the corn all gets harvested in, and you're going to make your first new bread with that. And what you're going to do is take that bread to the church and get it blessed, and that blessing is going to protect the corn for that whole season. And you'll get good bread that's not going to make you sick. Much about the origins of Lammas is obscure, but it's a festival with a long, interesting, and somewhat unusual history. I said may have been because we really don't know much about how Lammas Night has been celebrated in Anglo-Saxon England. To be clear, there's a lot from Anglo-Saxon history that we don't know completely. And whenever you're listening to the words of the Anglo-Saxon, whenever I talk about the customs and rituals that were lost long before your grandparents were even born, I mean exactly that. That's how long ago it's been lost. And we need to fit together what we had. And to do that, we're going to need more than Beowulf and the writings, and we need to drill into how these people actually lived their daily life, and that's going to tell us what we need to know. It's mentioned a number of times in Anglo-Saxon texts, but most of these records simply treat it as another name for August 1st, with no indication of any particular customs associated with the day. The name and the timing of the feast would suggest a link to a wheat harvest and the blessing of bread, but we have no evidence to suggest what form this might have taken. And the Church of England would disagree with you in that they have got a whole planned out service for it. But there you go. However, it's often suggested that since the date of Lammas corresponds with the recorded Irish and West festivals, and there are no close continental parallels for a harvest festival in that that date. Lammas may be the Christian name given by the Anglo-Saxons to the pre-Christian festival celebrated in Britain and Ireland. And I want to be very clear about this. See, in Anglo-Saxon times, there were no Celts in Britain. They just were not a thing. For actually, I'll tell you a lie, because there were Celts arriving in Ireland at that stage. Well, for some of it, probably most of it. There we go. Right. This means Lammas is often said to be a pagan festival, and it has been adopted as such by neo-paganisms, where it seems to be considered interchangeable with leprechaun shite. Through this plausible superstition, there was no firm evidence that supports it. Despite its possible pre-Christian origins, the name Lammas is both Christian and English. The second element, Mass, is borrowed into Old English from liturgical Latin and is only used to refer to Christian or Jewish festivals. In the Anglo-Saxon period, long afterwards, it was endlessly productive as a suffix, giving us not only the names we still use, like Christmas and Candlemas, but almost limitless variety of Christian festivals with comparable names. Childermas, Michaelmas, Martinmas, Marymas, Allenmas, Hollandmas, Rothermas, Crutchermas, and so on. It's very unlikely it could have been used for a festival which was perceived to have a substantial non-Christian component. So, but as we know, whenever you're trying to imprint your culture onto another one, what we do is we take the festivals and we modify them somewhat. And by the way, our summer solstice festivals are currently, our summer solstice festivals currently, what do you call that rock concert? Glastonbury. Yeah, that's our summer solstice celebration currently. It's the one that we talk about in the news and in the period leading up to it and after it, and everybody gets all excited about. That level of excitement and quantity of people travelling to it would have been reserved for Stonehenge a few miles up the road, and it would have been free, and there wouldn't have been a fence around it. But that is the new summer solstice festival for the woke elite that have taken over. And with that, I'm going to check the chat. Oh, fuck. Oh, Notting Hill. We are not going near that. Pudgy burger. You did not come from the yips. This is very true. Wonder how different England would have been had Boeta and Offa had strong sons to unite England. I think uniting England was beyond them at that stage. We hadn't got to the point where the people were ready to do that, and they liked their separate little kingdoms. No, not £400 a head. Was Glastonbury monastery raided by Henry VIII? Probably. He did most of them. He got the mumbo jumbo stuff out. Exactly. It is a ritual. It's a humiliation ritual. And it's been made political and spiritual and all by all those fuckers that attend it. And that's where your that's where summer solstice is going to. Right. I'm going to crack on with this. Similarly, a few references to Lammas are from fairly late Anglo-Saxon texts and survive in a learned Christian context, as you would expect from the nature of surviving sources. Lammas doesn't regularly appear in Anglo-Saxon calendars or liturgical books, where August the 1st is instead the feast of St. Peter and Fancha and or the Maccabees, but there are various intriguing references to it. The earliest may be the Old English martyrology, probably dating to the 9th century, which doesn't use the name Lammas but does refer to the 1st of August as the day of blessing the bread. In this word Sion, which is related to the verb sigillum, to make the sign of the cross, is another borrowing from the ecclesiastical Latin signature, so we're no closer to finding any pre-Christian terminology. The first recorded use of the word Lammas itself is probably Old English Orist, which refers to the 1st of August in passing, while telling the story of Antony and Cleopatra as the day that we call Lammas. The text likely comes from the last decade of the 9th century, and the late date is interesting. It's already a good few centuries later than other usual authority on pre-Christian Anglo-Saxon customs. Bede, who doesn't mention Lammas, all the references to Lammas in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, again simply as another name for August the 1st, are from the 10th and 11th centuries. 1 second. Oh, sorry. The humorist Afefka, usually such a helpful guide to the cycle of the church year, also only mentions Lammas in the alternative name for the 1st of August. He refers to it in passing in a homily about St. Peter, telling his congregation that the 1st of August is the day that you, not we, call Lammas. It might suggest he thought of it as primarily as a secular rather than a religious occasion, though not a pagan one, or he probably wouldn't mention it at all. I would say that Lammas has both Christian and secular aspects to it. It has a church service and blessing of bread, sometimes blessing of animals, but it also has a secular part because I really don't think going out in the cornfields to fuck is part of Christianity. I think that's some of the behaviours that the Christians decided that we should not partake in. Uh, Perhaps by this time it was an extra liturgical custom adopted and supported by the church, but not incorporated into the uh, liturgy. If it was a day when people brought loaves to the church to be blessed, we don't have any record of specific blessings attached to Lammas, though there are general blessings for bread and crops which might have been used. Alternatively, though it's impossible to say for sure, it might be that this date of Lammas was for some people just a name for the beginning of the harvest rather than a festival with any particular customs, something like Boxing Day in modern Britain, a name for the day after Christmas, which everyone knows and uses but really can't explain, which bears no relationship to how anyone actually spends a day. Actually, do you know what, Mr. Clerk of I'll explain Boxing Day to you now. In the Victorian era, Christmas presents would come in boxes. It would be wrapped up in a box in bright coloured paper. They would be given on Christmas Day, but opened on Boxing Day. And the reason for them being opened the day after was because your guests who had given you the gifts had then left. And therefore, whenever you opened up the box and went, oh fuck, not socks again, those people were not there. And you could tell them, thank you very much for that lovely gift of socks, uh, without them knowing your actual feeling. So that's why Boxing Day is called Boxing Day. Lammas appears just once in Old English poetry in the beautiful calendar poem known as Manicondium in the section for August, Weed Month. This poem describes Lammas and the coming of autumn. See this stuff? Yeah, I have no idea what the fuck these words are, so I'm not even going to attempt this. You need somebody who can translate that. And after the Feast of St. James, after 7 nights of summer's brightness, Weed Month slips into the dwellings. Everywhere August brings to peoples of the earth Lammas Day, so autumn comes after the number of nights but one. Bright laden with fruits, plenty is revealed, beautiful upon the earth. According to the system of dating used by the 10th century poet, the season of autumn began shortly after Lammas on August the 7th, a date calculated by its precision halfway between the summer solstice and the annual equinox. It's a fucking quarter day. I've written about this dating system before, and I wrote about the Old English harvest poetry in a post last year. The poem unfortunately tells us nothing about Lammas except that it comes to the people everywhere, which is actually far from true since it was such a localized festival. A localized festival, you say, but it was localized to very many towns across the country. And we will get to that. But you can see how closely it coincides with the coming Harvest Festival. The Old English name for autumn is harvest, and they're the same thing here. The link between the autumn and the harvest is one thing which makes Anglo-Saxon view of the season quite different from our modern perspective. Think of autumn, you may think of reddening leaves, dewy, chilly mornings, darker, shorter days. Probably not of harvesting, working under the blazing August sun. But in Old English, linguistically speaking, at least, autumn and harvest are indistinguishable, which is also probably going to point to slight differences in our farming methods. Our final and perhaps most interesting Anglo-Saxon reference to Lammas appears in a ritual indeed intended to protect harvest corn from mice and other pests. Take 2 long pieces of 4-edged wood, like 2 by 2, and on each piece write a paternoster on each side down to the end. Lay one on the floor of the barn and lay the other across it so that they form the sign of a cross. And take 4 pieces of hollow bread which has been blessed on Lammas Day and crumble them into the 4 corners of the barn. This is the blessing for that, so that mice do not harm these sheaves. Say prayers over the sheaves and do not cease from saying them. So what they're saying is this is a very precious commodity. If the mice or rats or anything else comes and eats it, everybody's going to starve, so we need to be a bit careful with it. City of Jerusalem, where mice do not live, they cannot have power. They cannot gather the grain, nor rejoice with the harvest. This is the second blessing. Lord God Almighty, who made heaven and earth, bless these fruits in the name of the Father and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And then say the Pater Noster. The manuscript from which this charm comes, British Library, Cotton Phyllis E. Roman numerals, is a pastor written in a monastery at Winchester in the middle decades of the 11th century. This charm survives alongside other prayers and rituals in a sort of collection of highly useful information. So, remember he was saying earlier about there not being information about them preying on the bread. Well, that just verifies that that did happen. How to keep people from stealing your bees? Most lucky days for childbirth and so on. The list can be seen here. Although the modern eyes, this kind of ritual often looks like pagan magic, it's part of a complex picture of popular and learned devotion in early medieval England. This particular ritual might well have been performed by a priest, and it's made up of explicitly Christian symbols and practices: the cross, the pater noster, and the consecrated bread. This charm suggests that there was something special about the bread blessed at Lammas, but it might be plausibly referred to the enriched consecrated at Mass said on Lammas Day rather than the specific Lammas loaves. If you'd like to read more about these kinds of fascinating texts from people who used and recorded them, I refer to the brilliant blog For the Win. I think I've used that blog previously. Well, that was an exhaustive history of the Anglo-Saxon sources. Let's skip over the next 7 centuries a bit more quickly. Later in medieval and into the early modern period, Lammas seem to have retained a kind of quasi-official status, acting mostly as a fixed date for various secular customs, rather than being celebrated for the as a festival itself. It was still commonly used as a name for August the 1st and sometimes the whole month of August. Often it seems to be simply another name for the season of harvest. Some later medieval writers understood the name to be Lammas Festivals, and though it had something to do with lambs, which suggests they didn't recognize the loaf element or the connection with the bread, others treat Lammas as if it were a name for a feast of St. Peter in Chains, the feast more widely celebrated in medieval Europe on this day. In the 15th century, John Laudet summarized the festival of summer, including in his poetic list, Petrie's chains were broke in prison. The feasty thereof called Lammas, while the contemporary John Crowe Cape Grave writes the feast of Saint Par, which the Latin shit in English Lammas. Given the time of the year and the huge importance of getting in the harvest, Lammas was a popular date for fairs and local feasts. It was also one of the regular dates on which rents would be paid, debts settled, contracts made, and labourers hired. Because it was associated with such payments, Litter Lammas became a humorous phrase for a day which is indefinitely delayed or never, as in the wonderful old citations note how late the dates are. Litter Lammas, a day that will never come. Litter Lammas, humorously never. I'm going to skip through these things. In some English towns, you still find fields and meadows called Lammas lands, areas of common land where people could pasture their animals for a fixed season, running from Lammas until the following spring. Above and below are the Lammas lands at Godalming and Surrey, looking particularly beautiful in August last year. That is actually very nice. Imagine sitting in that house at the back eating your breakfast, maybe outside because it's a lovely warm morning, and looking out in that. There we go. Nice wee stream roll running through it. I love these two phrases, Ladder Lammas and Lammas lands. While mundane enough in their definitions, both have an irresistibly poetic ring. And there is also a beautiful phrase, Lammas growth, also called Lammas leaves and Lammas flesh, which is the name given to the renewed sprout of growth which occurs in some trees around early August, the second shoot of greenness following after the first burst of spring, a flush of fresh growth in a mature tree. Isn't there a poem to be written, waiting to be written on that? I might actually give it a go. This is a wonderful puzzle of a festival. On the one hand, we have abundant evidence for its history over many centuries, from Anglo-Saxon monk who wrote the Millennium to the keen eye of the gardeners looking out for Lammas growth, from the witty 16th century courtiers joking about ladder lammas to the cherished land rights of medieval villagers. Look, the other thing is that a lot of our customs are connected to land rights, grazing rights, common land rights. The cheese rolling is the most obvious one, where they needed to prove that that land had been walked on in the last year, so they made a big cheese rolling festival and competition in order that they could prove the land was walked, and therefore people could continue grazing their livestock. Uh, Once I've lost my place, one momento. On the other hand, we have very little evidence for the celebration of the festival itself, but however obscure its origins, it's a day which has had meaning of many different kinds, a variety of people and communities for more than 1,000 years. It's worth concluding by emphasizing that variety because it adds some nuance to the way Lammas is often properly presented these days, having been almost entirely forgotten in our less agricultural society. It's now frequently characterized as a pagan festival, often a Celtic pagan festival, except it was founded in Britain and there were no Celts. But then again, the Celts like to steal fucking everything. They stole the whole Welsh people, but that's a whole different aspect. As if it were the beginning and end of its history. As with much of what's said about the Estro, this is largely the product of 19th century scholarly speculation. As with much of what's said about Estor, this is largely the product of 19th century scholarly speculation. People, in the early 1800s, the academics changed all of history, and nobody stopped them. But there you go. Much of what is based on false assumptions or an imperfect understanding of the Anglo-Saxon sources. Specialists in the period now take a different view, but since these speculations of Victorian scholars were very influential in the development of 20th century neo-paganism, they are repeated uncritically all over the internet and elsewhere. Here's a typical example from the BBC's religion subset. Lammas, also called Lanarkshire, comes at the beginning of August and is one of the pagan festivals of Celtic origin, which split the year into four. The Celts had a festival of the Irish god Loch at the time, and later Anglo-Saxons marked the festival as Halfmass, Loafmass, or Loafmass. At this time, for those agricultural communities, this was the first day of the harvest when fields would be growing with corn and reaping would begin. The harvest period would continue until Samhain, when the last stores of winter months would be put away. Although farming is not an important part of modern life, Loggermas still is seen as a harvest festival by pagans and symbol connected by the reaping of corn. Notice how this leads everything between early paganism and modern pagan practices, and how still seen suggesting unbroken continuity of practice which isn't there. The modern version is just a complete reinvention of course. I think I have evidence that that's not quite true. That's a huge period of time just skipped over, jumping more than 1,000 years from the pre-Christian period to the 20th century. And what's ignored is everything in the sources discussed above, including all the Anglo-Saxon sources, a purportedly a purportedly historical account of a festival which ignores every single documented source for its history. Shaky to say the least. Yes, typically this also treats Lammas as if they were interchangeable names for the same thing, which is not just an oversimplification, but also culturally tone deaf. See, in order to get to a Celtic Britain, what they did was they took a lot of stuff that was already there and already British and not Celtic and just called it Celtic, like the Welsh, like the Scottish, like everything that they do. Uh, but they've been allowed to do that. And the Scottish and the Welsh really need to come out and fix that. The only people that can fix that is the Scottish and the Welsh. Even if they have linked origins, and that's a big if, the Irish and English festivals have different histories and have been understood within their own different cultural contexts. Of course they do, because the Irish people are fucking Celts and they have no connection whatsoever to the English people. Now, if you want to talk about the U-Lad, the Picts, the Ulster Scots, yeah, their festival is the same as the English one because they're the same people. The cynical part of me wonders if the English people like to use the name Lammas instead of Leinster just because they find it easier to pronounce and say. No, it's not. It's not that. What you'll find is the crowd that like this name want to take over this festival. I'm very glad that there are people today who celebrate Lammas and for whom it has a sacred significance. I don't want to disparage it at all, but from the historical point of view, we shouldn't ignore such great swathe of recorded history just because it doesn't fit with the modern black and white ideas of what is pagan and what is Christian. To modern eyes, a harvest festival somewhat looks pagan, but that doesn't mean it is. And the assumption that it must be reveals more about us and our impoverished view of the natural world than it does about the past. I've got something to say about this that has just came to me. As I have said many times, I have been following the natural year this year, and it has actually went well. Started off before the year started, getting my New Year's resolutions all in order, choosing them carefully. January, I attempted to put them in place, and it was difficult. It was very difficult. And February and March, and it was about May before I started getting on top of things. And now, at the time we've got the Lammas, we're having the harvest and celebrating the harvest and enjoying the fruits of the harvest, and also praying for the continuation of that because we've worked hard and we've got that. I now have a kitchen table that I made that works for my flat. There's a little bit of I've got new chairs, and I am for the first time sitting eating in my kitchen where I probably should have been doing so all along, and it's making my life a lot easier. And it feels like a bit of a harvest, and things have went well. So there is that. Maybe following the natural year does have good consequences. I'm conscious of this danger because I write fairly open about the seasons of the natural year in medieval literature, and although many readers seem to find the subject interesting as I do, a small minority react very oddly and aggressively to it. For me, it's fascinating to see how medieval writers thought about and wrote about the seasons, especially to try and tease out kinds of meaning, poetic, religious, spiritual, philosophical and scientific, which found in the seasonal cycles. Is this the theme of some of the loveliest poetry in Old Middle England, as well as some intriguing examples of medieval science? The other point that I meant to bring up there, but did not, was that, well, we may be very familiar with the idea of pagan people, pre Christian people, having rituals and praying for harvests and stuff, because in those times, life was very hard. And if your harvest didn't work, you were basically fucked and everybody was going to die. Well, those pressures did not reduce just because we suddenly became Christian, and the need to pray and invoke the gods to protect your food source, that stayed there. So therefore, the pagan prayers became Christian prayers. It's really simple. Because almost all surviving medieval English literature, my particular interest, was written down in a Christian culture, such poetry and science is often framed in explicitly Christian terms. This upsets some people very much. These people take the view that the interest in natural cycles or the natural world as a whole is by definition solely pagan. Uh, well, seems there's a lot of Christian festivals that tie in with a natural order. Just saying. According to their understanding of that term, usually a markedly 20th century one, and that Christian writers have no business caring about it. In their view, the Christian nature of a festival like Lammas is a kind of false shell within which the real festival is somehow hiding. The last year once accused me of deceitfully concealing this real paganism for my own nefarious ends and demand that I produce a secret pagan text. I'm, I'm hiding, and they're never put off by the inconvenient fact that such texts simply do not exist. There is a presumption of bad faith, and they are determined to believe the worst of me and the medieval writers and their imagination. Some, like the Anglo-Saxon monk who wrote down the Lammas charm, becomes part of some fast wicked Catholic conspiracy rather than a fairly ordinary product of the time, place, and education. And all of this stuff's going to be Catholic because we didn't have Protestantism until much later. What they can never seem to accept is that much of what modern audiences view as pagan, solstices, the healing power of plants, astrology, and so on, were standard parts of medieval science, religion, and medicine. They were subjects of learned as well as popular interest, which even most Orthodox Christian writers accepted without question. Not because they were too stupid to know better, but because their view of such learning and its sources and purpose was simply different from our own. When people, yeah, that's another thing. Whenever you go back 100 years ago, people thought slightly differently because they lived in a different society. And you go 100 years before that, and they thought slightly differently because they lived in a different society. And the vast majority of the problems that we have in the world is people applying the standards of today to that of past generations, because our past generations were on very different uh, pressures, and your chances of surviving a year were a lot less then, and that does compress everything. When people object to medieval Christians stealing concepts they think of as pagan, it's often because they are projecting back into the past a very modern view of such matters, one ingrained with superstition of the Catholic nature of the medieval church. I wouldn't mind this so much if it came from people who identify as pagans, but in fact, most comes from self-proclaimed atheists who seem who see it as a stick with which to be Christianity. Why atheists continually need to mock the church is really beyond me. Uh, they could They could do this. They could just go, I don't believe in God, I'm going to leave all of that alone. Uh, and just not go near the church, don't interact with. They could do all that. But no, they need to constantly poke and mock. And this poking and mocking does extraordinary damage to the fabric of our society, because our society was based upon uh, a Christian and then a Protestant faith. And for the society to function properly, it needs the vast majority of the people to interact with the church. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen anymore. And that's got a lot more to do with what's wrong with this country than people will give it credit for. And yes, I am blaming the atheists on that. That and there's equal parts blame for the atheists and the woke Christians. For them, the idea that a conspiracy of Christians, I'm going to check the chat. Special K and acids country dweller. The definition of pagan I use Special K is any pre-Christian religion or any basically any religion is not Christian. That's not Christian. Not Christian or Jewish or Islamic. Is I would put all of that into paganism. I'm not 100% sure if that Emma G is with the kids, but in her own place. We don't live together. I will be seeing Emma on Monday. She has been having all sorts of fucking night shifts. Very welcome, Special K. By the way, if I'm reading, I'm going to miss a shitload of comments because whenever I go on the screen that I'm reading from, I can't see that. I can't see the comments. But that's how I would describe pagans. Let's get back to this. For them, the idea that conspiracy of Christians stole seasonal feast from paganism is a checkmate, proving that the religion is a big fraud and they're the only ones smart enough to spot it. Having read a lot of Dan Brown and not much else. Yes. Dan Brown books are works of fiction. They do hold some historical fact in them, but they've got a lot of bullshit. They wield the pub war armory of facts, which are either very basic or entirely inaccurate. I need to close my window. I'm not quite sure what's going on outside, but it's rather noisy. Of the idiotic Easter variety. And my goodness, there are a lot of them about. Some of them even write for national newspapers. There's almost no point trying to talk to these people. They don't want to learn anything which might disrupt their existing prejudices. Very few people do. And all they want from historians is confirming of what they already think they know. People often ask me, how did the Anglo-Saxons celebrate Easter? To which the honest answer is, well, what we know from the best surviving sources is that they went to church. Let me tell you about the liturgical drama and some interesting Good Friday popular customs. That answer, while true, isn't the one they want. They want an easy story about eggs, bunnies, and they don't care much whether it's accurate or not. For the record, Easter was set in the calendar at the First Council of Nicaea, 325 AD. That's where a whole bunch of the Pope gathered up a whole load of religious people, cardinals. I'm not sure what way the rank system works in in the fake in their Vatican, but he gathered them all together and they made a lot of decisions about what would be in the Bible and how the Christian system would work, so it could be uniform across the world. And at that point, they decided that Easter was going to be when it is, and it would move every year with the moon. The truth is, of course, that though the roots of a festival like Lammas or other frequently cited pagan festivals like Easter are likely to be pre-Christian, we have very little, if any, firm evidence of how they are originally have been celebrated. That doesn't mean that the pre-Christian history doesn't matter, but it is important to be clear about what evidence we do and don't have, and what it does and does not tell us. In the case of Lammas, what we do have is evidence for a harvest festival in Christian Anglo-Saxon England, on a date which continued to be marked for many centuries after the end of the Anglo-Saxon period. Lammas lands and latter Lammas are not pagan by any definition, but they're part of the history of Lammas too, not more or less important than the purgative pre-Christian festival, but much better attested. It doesn't make sense to argue about what the real Lammas is. It's all real. And the idea that the interest of the natural world isn't inherently pagan is one which would have made no sense at all to most medieval writers, or for that matter, most people for centuries after the end of the medieval period. It's a feature of an urban and post-industrial society to think that noticing and caring about natural cycles is an optional extra or some aesthetic magic secret. In fact, it's a modern luxury to be able to ignore them. This is totally true. If we messed up our calendar year, we had major problems. Whereas now, you can get foods all year round, you can get supplies all year round, and it just gets delivered to your door. So, uh, it is a modern luxury to not have to go through all of this. We have light available to us every hour of the day at the flick of a switch, and so some people fiercely believe that only super spiritual, cosmos attuned pagans could ever have thought to care about full moons and solstices. Go back even 100 years, and that's nonsense. Of course, there was a time, and there are still many places where solar and lunar cycles are unavoidably important, where moonlit nights were the only time of the year it was feasible to go out in the evening, and the lengthening and shortening of the days makes a huge difference to the routine of daily life. Of course, people knew where midsummer was and found ways to celebrate it. It's not exactly a mystery. It's a failure of the imagination not to realize that this is one of the ways in which the past, even the quite recent past, was very different to the present. And it's very modern kind of arrogance to think that it takes some special deep insight to notice or care how the cycle of the year works. Uh, I will add to that I know personally that getting more involved with the lunar year and our past festivals has improved my life or been part of the improvement of my life. I'm not going to say that's the only thing. Uh, the biggest difference it made to me was trying to plan and be ready for these festivals and not have them sneak up on me like they had always done previously. Uh, and I will also say that next year will be better than this year because I've done the really hard miles this year and made everything a bit more sustainable in my life. You'll hear a lot of people, a lot of talk about whether or not something's sustainable. They generally talk about, is it made of plastic? Is it made from oil or whatever? By sustainable, what I mean is you do the same work every month. You get roughly the same pay every month. You have roughly the same costs every month. And at the end of that month, you've got some left to uh, put away for whenever you need it. Or like what happened to me this month, I'll not be putting anything, I'll not be making any savings this month. But I did have a couple of bills come in the 1 month that are not regular, if you know what I mean. Like my bill for my tickets for the Northern Ireland matches come in, and the I pay for the ability to stream on the GoPro, which works out at less than £1 a week. It was 50 quid for a year, and that came in this month. So, but I'm still going to be able to get to the end of the month without dipping into any savings. But and instead of having savings this month, I've paid a couple of bills. But that's why I believe that's my definition of sustainable. Can I continue to do this every month? And the answer to that is yes. And I'm quite liking that. It's especially true for harvest festivals like Lammas on agricultural society and harvest affects everyone. It's not an optional action or mystic observance. You don't even have to go back to the Middle Ages to become aware of this. Think of Mary Crawford in Mansfield Park, oblivious that it's unreasonable to accept to hire a cart in the country at harvest time because she holds the true London maxim that everything is to be got with money. Today, many of us, more like Mary Crawford than the farmers she offended, we're fortunate enough to be able to obtain food of whatever kind they like all year round without having to worry about the season. And that makes harvest festivals like this seem like nothing more than nice decorative adornment to the calendar. But we shouldn't forget this is a modern and privileged perspective, and we shouldn't impose it back upon the past. Everywhere you look at the moment, you'll see people projecting their fantasies back into history rather than allowing the past to be different from the present. This comes from people across the political spectrum, but what they all have in common is that they only really care about history as far as it serves modern political goals. This guy has it fucking nailed. Going to highlight this because I'm going to say it again. This comes from the people across the political spectrum, but what they all have in common is that they only really care about history as far as it serves their modern political goals. If you're trying to shoehorn stuff into history, you're doing it wrong. And if you're trying to politicize what happened, what you need to do is start with the skeleton of facts of what happened, what caused them, how we interacted, and how we behaved at the time, and then try to create an accurate perception of how we lived in those times. They're only interested in the past to the extent that it supports their modern prejudices, whatever those happen to be. They can't or won't face it on its own terms and in its own lights. What doesn't fit, they choose to ignore. The people who angrily object to the idea that Lammas has a Christian history as well as a pagan one have their own fantasy. A homogeneous, pure paganism. Yeah, all those pagan religions were different, by the way. And they want me to provide for them a version of Anglo-Saxon culture with its nasty Christianity taken out, not because they care one jot for pagan beliefs or the mystery and glory of the cycles of the earth, but because they want grist to the mill of their political opponents. Of course, I don't demand that such people take any interest in the latter history of the festival. They can't be interested they can be interested in whatever they like. But I do object to them insisting that I, in writing about medieval texts, support or distort what the sources actually do give us because they don't fit with a modern fantasy. The past in any particular place or any particular moment is very different from the world you know, and let it be different. 1 second, I'm just going to check how much more there is in this. Yeah, we're pretty much done. If you'd asked your average Anglo-Saxon monk or medieval villager whether celebrating the harvest was a Christian or pagan thing to do, I wonder whether they would even have understood the question. It's the harvest. It matters to everyone. No one stole it from anyone because it belongs to everyone. Of all British festivals, Lammas is perhaps simultaneously the most local and most universal. Throughout its long history and its different forms, it has been the name by which honours that we all need. Peoples everywhere, as it, say, the fruits of the earth and our daily bread. There we go. That is that. I'm going to take that out and we're going to be having a musical interlude. If I can get back to the StreamYard. Yes, I'm back to the StreamYard. I'm going to check the chat. Sorry, I'm just checking the chat. Oh, I think the word would make more sense if we spoke Greek from antiquity. It possibly could. Spiritualism belief systems are important, whether founded in religious texts or not. However, they may have been manipulated again. I don't believe in the celestial dictatorship. Materialism sucks. Yeah. Right. Okay. We're going to have a musical interlude. Let me just find it. And it's going to be the Lammas Fair song. Oh, yeah. There it is. Get this back to the start. And this is by Ruby Murray, who hails from Sandy Row. There's a mural of Ruby Murray on Sandy Row. Here we go. The Lammas Fair song. We'll put that like that.
At the old Lammas Fair in Ballycastle long ago, I met a little Pauline who set me heart aglow. She was smiling at her daddy buying lambs from Paddy Row. At the old Lammas Fair in Ballycastle, oh, I seen her home that night when the moon was shining bright. From the old Lammas Fair at Ballycastle, oh, at the old Lammas Fair, boys, were you ever there? Were you ever at the fair in Ballycastle, oh? Did you trade your Mary Ann to some Dulcin yellow man? At the old Lammas Fair in Ballycastle, oh. In Flanders fields afar, while resting from the war, we drank bon santé to the Flemish lassies, oh. But the scene that haunts my memory is kissing Mary Ann, her pouting lips so sticky from eating yellow man. We crossed the silver margie and strolled across the strand, from the old Lammas Fair at Ballycastle, oh. At the old Lammas Fair, boys, were you ever there? Were you ever at the fair in Ballycastle, oh? Did you trade your Mary Ann to some Dulcin yellow man? At the old Lammas Fair in Ballycastle, oh. There's a neat little cabin on the slopes of Olney. It's lit by love and sunshine where the heather honey's made by the bees ever humming, and our children's joyous call across the valley when the shadows fall. I take me fiddle down smiling there brings back a happy memory of the Lammas Fair. At the old Lammas Fair, boys, were you ever there? Were you ever at the fair in Ballycastle? Oh, did you treat your Mary Ann to some Dulcin yellow man at the old Lammas Fair in Ballycastle?
Oh, right, there we go. You got a little bit of Oliver's Army there by mistake, but there you go. That was Ruby Murray and the Lammas Fair in Ballycastle. And, oh, fuck me, I've just closed the wrong tab. Right. Okay. History. Right. And we're going to have a little bit of the Lammas Fair in Ballycastle. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Here we go. This is from the 1960s. And here's what it looks like. This fair still continues today. You can see them trading horses and donkeys in the street. So here we go. That's Yellow Man. Right, hold on. See this block of thing that he's holding in his hand? That's the Yellow Man that was mentioned in the Lammas Fair song. It is yellow in colour. It's like honeycomb. It's a form of candy. And by God, teeth must have been better in them days because it would break teeth. But that's what the Yellow Man is in the song. I may pause this at other points. If we see some dolts, I'm definitely going to pause it for that. Hmm. There we go. That was a little bit of the Lammas Fair. Uh, so that's what the fair, that's from the 1960s. The fair still looks pretty much like that, the one in Ballycastle. Uh, I'm not sure exactly where else there are Lammas Fairs in Great Britain still, or in the United Kingdom. That's the one I know about. On culture, the British are yeah, the the British is quite good on culture, but there are there's some of his stuff I'll agree with, and and some stuff I disagree with. Well, but he is good on our culture. Uh, so the fair pretty much looks like that, and this is somewhere that people would have went for a number of reasons. If they're traders, they would have went to play their trades. Obviously, uh, there's harvest coming up, so there's a lot of people who can work. They'll turn up where the work is, and they will either get employment or they'll get or the people are looking for labourers. They'll go and they'll find them there, and you can indeed meet people. Uh, you can indeed meet people and get a partner and whatnot. And Latoya, you can ask whatever the fuck you want. I'm not sure I'm going to answer it, but ask away. If it's stupid, I'll block you again. Just so you know. If it's about why you were banned before, it's because you were fucking typing stupid shit in the chat. So there you go. But you can ask away. By the way, I really do not like interrupting the content to talk to you in the chat. If it's about the content, those questions are good. If it's some random bullshit, those are not so good. But ask whatever it is you want. Whatever will happen will happen. The problem is, every time I go off topic to talk to you, it disrupts the show, and I don't like that. So there you go. Now, where was it? Yeah. So you could meet you could meet friends, meet a lover or whatever, and there's all of that went on, and there was a lot of socializing to it. Nah, what else are we going to do this evening? Let me think. 1 second. I just want to have a look at the hopper and see what else I have in here. Oh, yes. We have something else. As you all know, I love a day. I do like days that are supposed to represent something. And I found one that happens in this month. Here we go. Sharing the screen. Check this out. Anybody from Yorkshire in the house? Here we go. Yorkshire Day. Didn't know about this. But let's have a look at this. The Yorkshire Society is on a mission to make Yorkshire Day a day when the whole region shows the world how proud we are to be Yorkshire. So we organise the centrepiece of Yorkshire Day when all our civic leaders, VIP guests and members of the society are invited to gather in a host town or city and mark this special day. It's certainly the largest such civic gathering in the UK and possibly the world. Check out this picture. That looks class. You've got tall ships there in the background, and you've got all the people in their formal gowns and their merle chains and all. That is fucking class. That, see if you want to show people what Britain looks like. Yeah, this picture, that is just fucking class. I really like that. So, why the 1st of August? The date alludes to the regimental anniversary of the Battle of Minden on the 1st of August and the wearing of roses in the headdress on that day. In the case of the light infantry, successors to the King's own Yorkshire Light Infantry, a white rose. The date is also the anniversary of the emancipation of slaves in the British Empire in 1834, for which a Yorkshire MP, William Wilberforce, campaigned. And the history of the day, I'm going to check if this is coming up on the screen. Yeah, go ahead. I don't know what my Gmail address is, and I don't ever look at it, so you can if you wish. I don't think I'll get it, but you can give it a whirl, or you can try emailing me. If it's interesting, I'll reply. With this blue on black, I don't think I'm going to be able to make that more viewable on the screen. Yorkshire Day was established relatively recently in 1975. The nature of the region and its people meant it was quickly adopted and has grown in significance year on year. What makes any of these days or events important is the public participation. And it looks like I get quite a lot of public participation in Yorkshire, which makes it important. The decision to mark Yorkshire Day with an annual civic gathering of mayors, lord mayors, their attendees and other dignitaries in full costume and regalia was taken in a meeting of local authorities within the boundary of the old county of Yorkshire, i.e. the free ridings of York, the Yorkshire Society at County Hall, Wakefield, on the 29th of June 1985. The Yorkshire Society was then charged with guardianship of the idea and organising the annual event, which now forms the centrepiece and focal point for the celebrations undertaken across the whole region. The official Yorkshire Day civic celebrations now adds to pomp and circumstance to the pride of a region which, like the nation within, for the region, which is like a nation within a nation, having its own flag, its own language and anthem. almost. I'm going to guess that was Ugly Moorbay Tat and its own culture. It is undoubtedly the biggest gathering of first citizens and civic leaders in the UK and probably one of the biggest in the world. The first Yorkshire Day celebrated in 1985 was held in York. Since then, the council and mayor of different towns and cities have had the honour of hosting it. Year on year, it has evolved into an established format comprising breakfast, reception and robing, Thanksgiving service, a street parade of all the dignitaries and guests at the formal lounge. That would actually be really interesting to see. If you just want something to do next year, I would maybe go and have a look at that. From 2018, when Yorkshire Society itself began a modernisation, the event has evolved further with the last two hosts, Ripon City Council and Whitby Town Council, expanding it into the community and encouraging the participation of the general public with additional themed elements such as the official Yorkshire Day civic celebration is now the catalyst for the host town or city, providing an opportunity to boost local economy, capture the attention of the world and contact with its citizens. Sorry, people, I had to cough quite a bit there, and I really don't want to inflict it upon you all, so I had to mute for a second. Where was I? The host town or city has the honour and prestige of being the official Yorkshire Day town or city for the full calendar year. It is marked with handing over the Yorkshire Day flag from council to council on that day, each council adding its coat of arms to the flag to record their year. I think this is actually really good. And we're going to have a look at some of the photos. Just want to check this is still coming up. It is. Oh, thank you, Linda. Right. Ha! A town crier with a scroll. I'm just going to. These would probably be interesting if you knew exactly who they were. I like this dude. I like that regalia. There's him out in the street. That's obviously the breakfast. Yeah. Yeah. If you have the opportunity, go and watch this because there's not a lot of it about. And honestly, if you just want England back, you're going to have to do stuff like this. You're going to have to make England look like England. And at least in Yorkshire, you've got the people in charge actually trying to put their stamp and their make it look like their place with their customs, and that is what we need. There's nothing as safe as full streets. This is obviously the Reuben, where they all go in and get their official gowns on. Everybody's looking very well. Nice big sword, double-edged, cuts both ways, always has to. I wonder what's in that box. Nice big flag. Yeah, this is England. This is your country. I like this with a pike man. Isn't that beautiful? Just even the street and the way it's all laid out and the way it's built. And you can see the very old and you can see the slightly newer. It's church service. Right, I think that's probably enough of that. And we'll go back to the streaming yard. Yeah, the overhanging second floors. Yeah, it really nice, and you get to see what our country actually looks like. Oh fuck! I remember my dad saying the only good thing in Lancashire was the road to Yorkshire. To be fair, Amanda, whenever I'm asked about Dublin, I say the only good thing in it's the Belfast Road out. It's very similar. Very similar. Uh, right. So what are we going to do now? I think we're going to have another little bit of music. I'm not quite sure what that's going to be just at the minute. I think we're going to do harmony, melody, and rhyme. It's so you can toss the chamber pot goods on the street and at the sidewalk. Yeah, that's right. On the bit where the cattle are walking about and the horses and all that. Right. I think we're going to do harmony, melody, and rhyme. Video file. We'll go to red.
Hello, this is 42 speaking. Welcome to the Resistance. You are not alone, and we shall walk this journey together. What about you, John? If one brings a guitar and one brings a voice, then they stand together and make their own choice. Let us gather together those that can perform, and from the scarred timbers build our own platform. From that grand house they tried to burn down, there's gold in the ashes if you look around. Let us gather together those that can perform, then from those scarred timbers build our own platform. Build our own platform. We will sing words of wisdom. We will sing for all harmony, melody, and rhyme. We descended from minstrels in old days of yore. We will create a culture as we did once before, forced to stand by as our country was sold. Did you really think we'd leave that story untold? So one brings a guitar and one brings a voice. Then they stand together and make their own choice. They have seen the future, the way forward is clear. Among us still stands a modern day Shakespeare. They have seen the future, the way forward is clear. Among us still stands a modern day Shakespeare. To stand by as our country was sold. Did you really think we'd leave that story untold? We will sing words of wisdom. We will sing we will sing harmony, melody, rhyme. Harmony, melody, and rhyme. So one brings a guitar and one brings a voice. Then they stand together and make their own choice. I have seen the future, the way forward is clear. Among us still stands a modern day Shakespeare. You never realized you could not kill a dream. So we will gather together those that can perform, and from the scarred timbers build our own platform. You're talking to 42. What about you, chum? If one brings a guitar and one brings a voice, then they stand together and make their own choice. Sing words of wisdom, we will sing for all time. We will sing for our people, harmony, melody, and rhyme. We will sing words of wisdom, we will sing for all time. We will sing for our people with the ancient trilogy of harmony, melody, rhyme. The gods of water, earth, and land brought us through a line. The earth, the moon, the sun, each became a deity, independent parts of another trilogy. Is it a coincidence or is it just sublime that we now bring excellence in harmony, melody, and rhyme? But you never realized you cannot kill a dream. You cannot kill a dream. And we shall walk this journey together.
We'll take that out and just to do a final recap. So, Lammas Day. It's a quarter day. It's a religious festival. It is a harvest festival. It's a day when rents were traditionally paid or due. It's a time when people will get new employment for the season, rearrange their grazing, maybe move from what type of work they had that had been available, and possibly meet someone new to continue their life with. And that's pretty much what it is. As with all of our festivals, there was the opportunity to cop off with somebody, and so we have all of that. and a very happy Lammas Day to you. And with that, I think I'm going to. If anybody has any questions, stick them in now, and I will hopefully answer them. And oh, I know what we're going to have for an intro. I think I've just decided what we're going to have for an intro, so I'm going to go and look that up. Oh, fuck. Yeah. Yes, this is the perfect one for it. Oh, hold on. We have to get past the advertisements before we can do this. That is gone. Yeah, I think this is very suitable for very welcome, experimental. Thank you for coming over. And here we go. Check this out. You're going to like this. I know you are. It's a fusion of old traditions and new stuff. Here we go. Oh, fuck here, hold on. Well, we're doing it. YouTube. See anybody says YouTube algorithm is is bad. Look, it chose for next up one of the songs that I've used as an outro for at times. And here we go. Yeah, we're gonna go with that. We're having a double outro once we get past these fucking adverts. The last one we had didn't have these adverts. This is here we go. Yeah, extra outro. This seems a little bit fitting. Why not? Let's do it. Kelly's Heroes. All the burning bridges.
Friends all tried to warn me, but I held my head up high. then standing there. All the burning bridges that have fallen after me, all the lonely feelings and the burning memories. Everyone I left behind each time I close the door. Burning bridges lost forevermore. Joey tried to help me find a job a while ago. When I finally got it, I didn't want to go. Party Mary gave for me when I just walked away. Now there's nothing left for me to say. All the burning bridges that have fallen after me, all the lonely feelings and the burning memories. Everyone I left behind each time I close the door. Burning bridges lost forevermore. Years have passed and I keep thinking what a fool I've been. I look back into the past and think of way back then. I know that I lost everything I thought that I could win. Guess I should have listened to my friends. All the burning bridges that have fallen after me, all the lonely feelings and the burning memories. Everyone I left behind each time I close the door. Burning bridges lost forevermore. Burning bridges lost forevermore.
Okay, right. Lufer, the floral dance. I can't remember off the top of my head what time of the year it is that happens, but I will be doing the floral dance whenever that time comes around, and it is actually quite nice. And with that, thank you all very much for sticking around. Uh, I do feel really privileged. Fucking yeah, no, I'm very pleased that every Saturday night I get to talk to these wonderful people, and that the channel's doing well, and that it's serving a purpose, and that uh, people are learning stuff about their past that they didn't know. That was always my intention, to try to give people some information. Uh, I'm really, I'm really pleased with how it's working. Yes, I know it's a very, very small channel. It's always going to be a very small channel. That's the way it's set up to be. There may be some different content coming soon. We will see what way it goes. But honestly, I find it quite fascinating that I can do this and people turn up and watch. The other thing that I should have said earlier on, a really big shout out to Al Mack and Justice King for what they did to make the poem, the harmony, melody, and rhyme, what it is, and the songs that came after it. I'm really over the moon with that. So we'll see you all again next week, and we'll do it again. I may have a guest on. We'll see. I have some emails to send. But for now, I will be next on the internet with this man here, Rich from RPW Media. I will be on his show next Friday night. Whenever the link goes live, I will share it in my community chat. So hopefully you just can get over to that. It should be a really good show. I'm really looking forward to that. And other than that, I have been 42. You lot in the chat have, as always, been fucking amazing. Thank you. Good night. God bless. See you all next week. I'm out of here. Good night. Goodbye.